In this vid, I'm going to be taking a look at ProfessorPokemonMC's Zekrom Serperior deck. In one of my earlier deck reviews, I took a look at his earlier list of Zekrom Serperior, and since I published the deck review, he's made a few changes to improve upon his deck and wanted me to take another look at it. I don't know if I'll do this in the future just because I'm getting so many deck reviews in, but for now I certainly don't mind doing an additional deck review since it has been changed or altered. So let's go ahead and see what sort of changes he made. This is Professor Pokemon MC's original Zekrom Serperior deck list. As you can tell, he had several more lines of Pokemon. He barely had any trainers and supporters to get out what he needed to get out, and there were some legal issues with his deck, such as having 5 Zekrom in the deck when you can only have 4 of one kind of Pokemon in here. So, after I did the deck review, he changed it up a bit, and we have this. As you can tell, we have a much shortened line of Pokemon going on. We have a much larger line of trainers and supporters, and our energy line is a little more streamlined too. So let's go ahead and take a look at the Pokemon line first. The starter Pokemon in this deck is Smeargle. I think this is an excellent choice, however it can also be a risky one. You could possibly portrait your opponent's Juniper and throw away an excellent hand. However, considering the high amount of donks that we've been seeing with Tyrogues and Clefas, it is the safer choice of the starter Pokemon. He currently does not run a Tyrogue in his deck to potentially get a donk off of his opponent's Clefa. Again, this is probably because there's a chance that he might start out with a lone Tyrogue and be donked himself, so I completely understand why he does not run it. However, it may still be a good idea if you want to enter a big tournament. You're going to be getting a lot of wins off of donks. So, his main attacker is Zekrom. And this is not the typical Zekrom deck where you utilize Pachirisu in order to attach multiple energy per hand and then Shaman to move them around. Manually attaching to Zekrom, it can take a little while longer, but with the Serperior that he has in his deck, that will allow it to heal itself in between turns, Zekrom is going to stay alive a lot longer than the average Zekrom, which means it can attack a lot faster and recover a lot faster. He has a 3-3-3 line of Serperior. He has both of the different variations of Serperior, but I recommend that he sticks with the 3 ability Serperior. If you can get a full bench of 3 ability Serperior up, Bolt Strike does 40 damage to yourself, you're healing 30 of that in between turns, and if Zekrom survives another turn, you can heal the rest of that damage off, plus a little bit of your opponent's damage. So I think this is an excellent pair, and couple that with a few other techs, I think this can be a very strong deck. So he also runs a 2-1 Chinchino line. I love Chinchino, operates off of a full bench, can hit for 100. However, I would recommend dropping this down to a 1-1 line or a 2-2 line. He also runs a 1-1 Zoroark tech. Same thing with the Chinchino. I like running a 1-1 tech in deck, so I really like the 1-1 Zoroark. Foul Play allows you to copy one of the defending Pokemon's attacks, and you just never know when Zoroark is going to come in handy. So 1-1 Zoroark is an excellent choice. He also throws in a Ditto. This reduces your opponent's bench size down to 4, and anytime they have 5, if they have more than 4, they have to discard one of them and all cards attached. Ideally, you'd wait until your opponent gets a full bench set up, play the Ditto, and force them to discard one. But even just reducing their bench size down to 4 could really destroy decks that rely on Chinchino or Jumpluff, and even decks that rely on, Shaman and Pachirisu, and having that bench space to utilize Pokemon can really be disrupted. So I really like the 1 Ditto tech. The only downside is that it only has 40 HP, and therefore it can be easily sniped off by a Yanmega. Yanmega is a very big deck right now, so I'd be on the lookout for that, and if you're seeing more Yanmega, this could be an easy tech just to drop. It's not exactly crucial, and yeah, as long as you're seeing Yanmega around, Ditto may just be waiting for a free prize. The only other Pokemon line that he runs in here is a 1-1-1 Stoutland. It's a decent attacker, but I think it's being a stage 2, it's just not worth it to run, so I would just take it out completely. There's a few changes we can make to your energy line. Currently you're running 2 basic dark energy. If we change that to 2 special dark energy, Zoroark can be hitting for 10 more each turn. You currently have 8 grass energy in the deck, which I think we can greatly reduce down to 3 or 4. you're really not going to want to attack with Serperior. It's there only for healing, but I can understand where if you have a Zekrom that was just knocked out and you need a turn to rebuild it, you can attack with Serperior, move a grass energy to Zekrom, so that you don't have to wait 3 more turns to power up Zekrom. 7 Lightning I think is solid, but I would also throw in some double colorless energy. Both Zoroark and Cinccino can benefit from the DCE. Essentially, they only need 1 DCE to be able to use their main attacks. So let's go ahead and take a look at your trainers and supporters. You run 2 Collector and 1 Dual Ball for a total of 3 cards that can search out basics. I think that's perfect, because then you can communicate those away and search for the evolution cards rather than using another supporter like Elm. You only have 1 communication though, and I would recommend that you increase that to 2, possibly 3 if you have it. You also run the 1 Twins, which I think is an essential in every deck just because you never know when you might be behind on prizes. You run 2 of the Flower Shop Girls, but I would recommend that you drop 1 of the Flower Shops and put in at least 1 revive, maybe 2 revives. With Zekrom, because it's a basic Pokemon, Revive allows you to put it straight back onto your bench. Since as a trainer, it's extremely fast, and pretty much any deck that relies on Zekrom and Reshiram should have at least 1, if not 2, revives in the deck. I would also recommend that you throw in 1 rare candy since you do run Serperior. That is your only stage 2 line, which is why I only recommend 1 rare candy, but you can also need to throw in some junk arms so that you could potentially reuse that rare candy if you need to, or reuse the revive, switch, communication, any of your other trainers. I definitely like to see 2 to 3 junk arms per deck, especially one that runs quite a few trainers. Like I said, you have 1 switch in your deck, so I think that's perfect. I don't think you need any more than that. You run 1 Interviewer, which I don't think is a big necessity. You should be able to draw into the energy that you need relatively quickly, but if you're having a hard time, 1 Interviewer isn't going to be a big deal in this deck. You currently only have 1 Defender. With Zekrom and the new errata to Defender, because of the errata, not only does it just reduce damage done to the Pokemon by the defending Pokemon, but it reduces the damage done by the Pokemon itself. So when Zekrom would usually do 40 damage to itself, with Defender attached, it would only do 20. Attach 2 Defenders, and it's going to do 0 damage. So if you have 1 Defender attached and a couple Serperior on the bench, you're essentially doing nothing in between turns, which makes it a little harder for your opponent to knock it out in 1 hit. And that's another reason you're going to want Junk Arm in the deck too, is to be able to reuse those Defenders. Especially only with 1, I definitely recommend increasing that to about 3. You run 2 Juniper, just 1 Juniper. I think that's solid. I don't think you should need to go up any higher, and 1 Juniper, yeah, I think that's a good number, so I keep that there. I think we can change around your Copycat and Pont line. Right now you run 4 Copycat and only 1 Pont. Because you don't rely on any cards like Yanmega that require the same hand size, I think you can either drop the Copycat completely and go just add in a total of 4 Pont, or just switch the numbers around and have 1 Copycat and 4 Pont. But I think Pont is the more consistent play because you're always going to guarantee that you draw 6. There's a risk with Copycat that you could be drawing into only 2 or 3, and that could hurt you a lot. The only other card I might suggest is an Energy Retrieval. Again, this really isn't a requirement. It just depends on how fast your opponent can run through your Zekroms and how fast you need to get those energies back onto the field. And the only other card that I would recommend adding to this deck is Pokemon Reversal, or if you're not planning on playing in the World Tournament, Pokemon Catcher when it comes out. This allows you to drag up something from your bench and be an easy knockout for Zekrom, especially since you're doing 40 to yourself with a Bolt Strike. If you can reversal up something weaker and knock him out with Outrage, that'd be the better play. So overall, I think this is a huge improvement from your initial deck, and I really liked seeing the changes and just seeing the way this deck has grown. So thank you very much for submitting it, and if anyone else would like to have their deck reviewed, just PM me the list and I'll get right to it.